More money for housing, health and education. Those are the demands from Labour this morning as it puts pressure on the government ahead of next week's budget.
Its party says there needs to be a genuine change, a decisive course. We can speak now to Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell, who joins us. Thank you very much for your time this morning. If we can first focus, of course, ahead of the budget next week, on housing. The government's proposal this morning, they're talking about wiping £70 billion of debt from housing association balance sheets. The reason is they want to allow them then to raise money more cheaply. What do you think of that proposal?
Well, it looks as though it's creative accountancy. If you remember, it was moved on to the balance sheet by the ONS a short while ago, and the government have now introduced a statutory instrument taking it off. So I think this is more about creative accountancy than real large-scale investment that we need. We have a housing crisis that we've really not seen since the Second World War, and it's because house building is now below what it was, believe it or not, in the 1920s. So it needs a significant investment. It's not just me saying that, it's actually government supporters, government MPs, government ministers. And I don't think this will allow anything on the scale that's needed.
Sorry, just to be clear, I mean, you can call it creative accountancy, but if it works, if that proposal of changing that debt, moving it from the balance sheets, if it works and means those housing associations can build more houses and then people can live in them, well, that's good, isn't it?
Yes, but it won't be on any scale. That's the problem. It will be something like they announced at the Tory party conference, which will nowhere near tackle the real problem that we've got. And the real problem that we've got is 7 years of lack of investment in housing, and what we need is a large-scale housing programme, I think led by local councils. And if the government can commit towards that, we might be able to then really start tackling the housing crisis that we've got. I don't think this will go anywhere near that.
Let's start talking about the scale of the problem you face. How many houses would you build, would a Labour government build?
We're saying we need 1 million new houses under the next period of government, this Parliament. 100,000 affordable houses, social housing each year. And we think we can build that on the basis of really bringing together local authorities and letting them have the powers now to get out there and start building again. You know, this is what we've done this isn't rocket science. This is what we've done in the past. We've allowed councils to enable them to build, have the resources and build the homes that we need. And in that way, we can get genuinely affordable homes, which at rents that people can pay.
And where does the money come from to build these homes?
Well, in the short term, yes, it is a matter of borrowing, and that's what it looks as though the government is going to do today. But we need to do it on a scale that will tackle the problem. And you know, it pays for itself at the end of the day, because when you build these homes, well, you put people to work. That's the first thing. Builders that need the jobs and get decent pay. But in addition to that, people start paying the rents. And it's cheaper than paying out large amounts of housing benefit to private landlords to house people, often in not very good conditions. And it's also cheaper than dealing with the real problems that come from homelessness and rough sleeping, which has gone up, well, doubled in our cities.
In a moment ago, you used the word creative accountancy for the Conservative plans. Some people immediately will hear what you've just said and they'll think, well, all you're doing is borrowing more money to solve a genuine problem that everybody recognises. Why not raise taxes, or do both things happen at once? What's the real answer?
Well, for a long-term project like this, what you do normally, the government will go out, they'll borrow. And it's not just me saying this. It's interesting. The Secretary of State, the Conservative Secretary of State, Sajid Javid, actually said this a few weeks ago. He supported our plans. He said exactly the same as me, repeated what I've been saying, which is now interest rates are so low, now's the time to borrow more money, to build the homes that we need. And in that way, you don't just house people, you cut the costs of, well, the homelessness crisis that we've got at the moment, and that so many people now are suffering as a result of that. It's just sensible government rather than really these mealy-mouthed measures that the government are bringing forward. We need something on a scale, and we can do it. We've done it in the past. Past Conservative governments and Labour governments have done it. So as I say, it's nothing new. We just need to get on with the job now, and that's what we're appealing to the Chancellor to do. Austerity hasn't worked, and certainly when it comes to investing in something like housing, you need a long-term plan We certainly haven't had that from the government.
Can I just ask one more thought for you in a slightly wider context? A lot of people talk about Theresa May's government being weak at present because of a number of factors. Can you make the direct link between that and how you think that affects what this budget will look like?
My worry is that this budget will be more about saving Theresa May's job and Philip Hammond's job rather than addressing the real needs of our country. And you know, we've had some real messages from the front line of our public services over the last few weeks. You know, head teachers writing to the Prime Minister, 5,000 of them, saying we've got to stop the cuts in our education. They're having to send out letters to parents asking for donations. We've had the chief executive of the NHS saying what sort of the scale of the crisis that we have in our NHS. And I've never seen before either the person who's responsible for advising the government on terrorism saying that we can't combat terrorism if we have this level of police cuts at the local level. So what we're saying is we do need an emergency budget, really. We need an emergency budget to tackle the very emergencies our public services are having to address. So this mustn't be a budget that is about stunts or something that will just try and protect Theresa May in her job. It's got to be a serious budget that looks at the real issues facing our community and, yes, starts investing our community again by ending austerity. And, you know, the best way of investing is to stop the tax cuts to the corporations and the rich that this government is undertaking.
John McDonnell, thank you very much for your time this morning. John McDonnell, Shadow Chancellor, speaking to us from Westminster.
You didn't frankly have the balls to put country before party.